So, Brad,
Hello,
happy
John.
Monday. Happy Monday to you, my friend.
Same here. Yeah, it's a quite snowy day up in the North Woods, but I'm surviving the cold. It's
It's
t-shirt weather today at 30 degrees.
it's a real winter in Wisconsin, and it's a 85-degree winter in Florida. So, pick your poison, I guess, right?
Yeah, yeah. So this is our Genesis episode of our Genesis podcast, whatever this turns into. We don't even have a title or anything yet, but it should become a fun, occasional conversation between you and I. So I'm excited what we're starting here.
I think it's going to be really, really good for folks because this whole conversation is all over the board, and with the way the world is today, the space is unregulated, so it's still the wild, wild west. It almost reminds me still of the 1800s and the gold west, gold
For
rush.
sure. Yeah.
You know.
Well, just looking at how early we are, like when I was younger, I was super into the internet, but I was a kid. I was like in high school and stuff, building websites. And I always wish that I had the opportunity to get into the internet when I was an adult, but I missed that boat. And now it seems like there's a new revolutionary technology that's finally coming about that I get my second attempt at. So it's pretty exciting. But on the same token of I think a lot of people don't understand the potential with all of this stuff, and there's just so many misconceptions. There's so many uh, myths and just wrong information out there that people don't really understand why cryptocurrencies are as influential as they are, and it's really fascinating. And you were telling me a story about your experience just recently.
Well, you say that it's interesting because we all go back. Well, not all of us, but some of us ex gens and folks go back to the '90s. And I remember putting together think tanks and had a group of investors. We would get together every Friday back in '97, '98, '99 during the dot-com area, and we were making money every week and not even understanding what we were investing in.
Yeah.
And I look at today saying, oh my God, this is like 1997, 98 again, when there was Broadcom and Broadcade and all these high flying tech stocks, and people weren't even understanding what tech was in the internet space. So clearly back then, people were putting money into vehicles and it was going up, but they had absolutely no idea what these vehicles were, if they were going to be around, even the people behind them. And you're right. I mean, this is what happened to me last night, and I love the cause and effect in people, so I'm not shy to ask people certain questions that kind of makes them startled. But last night I was buying some garlic bread for my wife for our dinner last night at a local pizza place, and I was having a glass of wine waiting for the bread, and I asked the bartender who was taking my order. I said, hey, do you guys take Bitcoin yet? And she looked at me with an angriest eyes I've seen in a long time. And she said, "Oh, that's drug money. That's illegal. I can't believe you're even still thinking about that stuff. I can't stand that stuff." And I was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa. Do you want to have this conversation?" She goes, "No, no, no. I don't want to talk about that whatsoever." So I thought that was a great conversation for this morning because people are that way. They just don't understand what cryptocurrencies are, even when you say the word Bitcoin. So I wanted to talk to you about that today. It's like, why is there that type of emotion in the marketplace or in the general public today? What do you think is the psychology right now that's going on?
Yeah, it's a really interesting phenomenon that's happening because I think about like back when the internet was starting, did people have such a visceral response to email? Like you can send this message through these imaginary pipes and it will go somewhere. Like, did people just absolutely like have these massive emotional responses to it? I don't know, maybe not. So it's this weird just environment that crypto lives in where it's been it's so stigmatized at this point, where to me I think one that just the term crypto is kind of the stigma around it. It's taboo, and people really don't understand it, and a lot of people fear what they don't understand, and so they just go out and just have this blanket response to it. And that, I think one of the ways that I've been explaining it to a lot of people is it's not really about cryptocurrency as like the term, but it's the technology behind it. And the thing that is the most fascinating part of it is the decentralized aspect of all of this stuff. And so if you think about, like, never before have we had the ability to run all of these computers all over the world simultaneously to create one central vision, where that was the original intent of the internet, like to have all of these different websites hosted on your own computer and all of that. But as Web 2 came out, it all went up to the cloud. And who's going to host the cloud? Well, it's going to be Amazon Web Services. It's going to be Google. It's going to be all the big tech giants that can afford these huge data centers. And so now we're kind of getting back to the roots of what the internet was intended to be, where that was just a bunch of people that are passionate about technology, running these different tech software all throughout the world to make the system run. And so it's really exciting from that perspective of that it's decentralized. And if people just think of it as like, a replacement for the US dollar, that's such a simple view where there's so much more to it. And it's
you're hitting on something, because to me that's like this massive thing to unpack. We can unpack this thing for probably the next 18 months in this conversation between you and I. But people in today, when and I do, every time I go somewhere, the first question I ask when I pull out my wallet to pay for anything is, do you accept Bitcoin? Because I think that people will understand the word Bitcoin. And I get responses all over the board, but that's just, saying Bitcoin or cryptocurrency, the first thing psychologically comes into people's mind is money. And you just hit on something that I think is important to share with the audience, which is, it's not money. It is a technology. It's a platform that is being laid so that our economy, so that our social networks, how we interact with the people globally around the world, it's a whole new level of technology that is really the undermining, layer and foundation that happens. There's cryptocurrency, the value, the store of money that's on top of that, where you can invest in. But why don't we talk a little bit about that? I mean, we were thinking about why cryptos today, or why cryptocurrencies, but why don't we talk just a little bit about cryptocurrency? I mean, you talked about the blockchain. What about that?
So the fascinating thing is that when the internet first came about, one of the biggest missing pieces was the interactivity and being able to interact with the internet. In the early days, you would just download a static web page, you'd read it, it was cool, but that was all that it was. And then when Web 2 came out, which was, the past 20 years, that's where you started to have logins. You had the ability to create YouTube videos. You're able to do all of this interactivity throughout the internet. But the thing that's always been missing is that layer that allows for commerce. And not commerce like Visa commerce, but true commerce on the internet. And that's the missing piece that's always existed. And so an example that I love to think about is, if, say, I was a publisher and I wanted to charge 5 cents for an article. So if you're, one of the major publications, you wanted to sell this one article, instead of requiring a subscription, it's 5 cents. How could you do that right now? If you put in your Visa or MasterCard or whatever it is, the processing fees, and I don't think a lot of people know this, but the processing fees on a credit card is going to be 2.9% of that transaction. But on top of that is going to be probably around 30 cents per transaction. So how do you charge 5 cents for something when it already costs 30 cents and more to make that transaction happen? So you literally cannot send 5 cents over the internet using the legacy systems. And now with crypto, you can have these micro transactions. And what that does is, and this is just one example, there's a million different reasons why decentralized technology is going to take over. But just from that microtransaction standpoint, if you think about like maybe it's a game that wants to reward you with half a penny, a, a a current legacy system can't do that, but with crypto you can do that very easily. And so it just shows how many different use cases there are when it comes to the potential of this technology. And it's those tiny things that I feel like the people that fear crypto and the word Bitcoin and all that, those are the things that they're not seeing. They're just seeing, you know, what the news reported on it. And it's so fascinating where it's going to go from here with that ability.
Well, and today people think of, if they have a trading account, they have Fidelity or Schwab or whatever, and that is a centralized database, right? People have to go on to log into that central database to get the information they want, right?
Yeah.
So when you talk about decentralized, we wrote a great article about that on our website, by the way, for folks who want to take a look at it. We'll have that posted for you. Difference between centralized and decentralized. But when talk about decentralized, you've got these. You don't have one Yahoo or one uh, uh, TD Ameritrade that you want to go in to get your data. You are working in the blockchain. It's totally decentralized nodes or computer systems, thousands and thousands and thousands around the world that all real time verify transaction, right? So you have access to that
Yeah.
information.
Yeah, and it's all transparent, and never before has that been possible. Like, and that's where just one misconception we gotta to like overcome is the whole criminality of it, where if you're a criminal, the absolute last thing that you want to use is a currency that is completely traceable, completely open, where anybody can see where it came from and where it went. So like, why, if you wanted to do some malicious thing, you wouldn't want to use an open ledger to do it. So it's fascinating that people still have that misconception when it's completely transparent. On the same note, it's really cool because as this technology evolves, so take for instance Ethereum. So Bitcoin is the one that everyone knows, and people are just now coming around to Ethereum. But inside of Ethereum is called EVM, and Ethereum or EVM stands for Ethereum Virtual Machine, and it's essentially if you think of Linux for Linux brought to life the MacBook, it brought to life Android, all of these different platforms now really have stemmed back from Linux. And EVM is exactly the same in regards to this crypto stuff. So as more and more technology adopts this central technology, we're going to see so many different innovations come from this EVM, and it's really fascinating to think of what we haven't even thought about yet, like 5-10 years from now, what it's going to allow for. Because in 1995, would we think that we would, we're probably a couple, I don't know, maybe a couple thousand miles apart right now, but we're still talking and we're doing it over video. It's high quality. Would we have ever thought that that was possible in 1995 when people didn't even know what the @ symbol on an email was? So it's those type of things that is the core that's being developed that will lead us into the next iteration of all this.
So when it comes to the cryptocurrencies, then people still there's Ethereum, there's this Bitcoin thing, which on the street, well, it's probably still this day. Maybe 80% of people don't understand even what the word Bitcoin is, let alone Ethereum. So we're thinking before this call is why cryptocurrencies today? But when you have the conversation with basic people on the street, if you even ask them why cryptocurrencies today, what do you think the first conversation we need to have with people is? Because if the first reaction is Bitcoin and someone says, well, I heard it through so and so, and it's this drug thing, or it's this thing that for people like you and I who've been around, that's like 7, 8, 9 years ago. So it's almost like if you're in business today and you're not using video for your business, you should have been doing this 5 years ago. You're already late to the party.
Yeah.
So whether you're an investor in cryptocurrencies or Bitcoin, how do we get people from 2015 and transport them to 2022 and say, okay, you're on the boat, all the, put together all the past, leave that in the past. Here's where we are today, and we're moving forward. Where do we start with this group of people today?
Yeah, and that's something that I've thought a lot about, and it's pretty tricky to summarize because there's so much utility with it. And I think it goes back to what you said earlier about investing in like the tech stocks in the 90s, where a lot of people didn't know what that stuff was. They just, they heard it was the latest, greatest. I feel like we're in that speculation phase because a lot of these, especially like dog coins and stuff, they don't really have a lot of utility. They're just ways for people to put money and they think that the number is going to constantly go up. And so I think we're in this like speculative phase of people don't understand the entire opportunity that exists in front of them, but they're just trying to catch the wave. And so we're in this limbo here of in between. But I think what we're going to start to see is just like with any major technology, it starts with things like video games, where you look at video games. So even like AR and VR, a lot of that stuff like Pokemon Go, that started with that made augmented reality popular for the masses. Because prior to that, you could like Yelp years ago made this thing where you could hold your phone up in a downtown and it would show all the restaurants and stuff. It was really cool, but they didn't find a use for it. Like it was cool, but it didn't really do much. But then you look at something like Pokemon Go, where you could run around town and get a little bit of exercise and catch these things. That really put augmented reality on the map. And we're just now seeing that kind of stuff with cryptocurrencies. So for years now, there's been ways to make money from cryptocurrencies, but it's more of just moving money around sometimes, where when we actually put it into use. So there's now play to earn games. One of the ones that I love is DeFi Kingdoms. There's different ways that you can interact. The one that's really popular is Axie Infinity, where there's like, I've heard it's a boring game, but it at least shows how things work. And it goes back to that microtransactions where you can do a transaction for a fraction of a penny to have something happen where you weren't ever able to do something like that before. So I really feel like as these actual use cases become more and more popular, another one to consider would be the Brave browser. So Brave is my favorite browser by far. I'm in web, so I have a lot of opinions on browsers. But basically, the Brave browser, it will block all of the harmful ads. So a lot of ways that websites and people get hacked is from a malicious ad. And what it does is it will block all of those ads, for better or worse. But at the same time, it will show very secure ads to you that businesses and organizations will pay for, but you also get a portion of what they paid for that ad. So through that, you get this micro transaction of this crypto called a basic attention token that, any given ad, it might be a fraction of a penny that you receive, but over time it adds up. And so all of a sudden you're now getting paid to browse the internet instead of just having the Facebooks of the world get paid to show those ads. So it's going to be a lot of those use cases that people might not even realize that they're using crypto, that they're going to just start getting paid. I think one of the biggest aha moments for a lot of people is if they are into crypto and they're just buying stuff on Coinbase and keeping it in Coinbase. That's investing. Yes, that's a little bit of speculation, a little bit of gambling, especially the high risk projects out there. But when you start to take the crypto off the exchanges and actually use it in different things, whether that's decentralized finance, whether that's in a video game or a metaverse or whatever, wherever they are interested in, that's when they're going to start to have those aha moments of this actually has utility in my life. It's going to benefit humanity in general. And it is a thing that I want to spend more time learning about.
So that's all interesting. I mean, that's the technology that you're talking about is phenomenal, and some of our audience people are still going to come back to that same thing, which is I think that's something we need to get some feedback from folks to talk and let us know what their thoughts are, because when we're talking about all these different cryptocurrencies, how do you get access to them? We're still going above and beyond just the base layer of what this whole technology is about. So I don't know if people want to learn more about the way they invest in it, all the different platforms, and there's thousands of cryptocurrencies to be investing in today. Or is it more important for them? And we want your feedback, listener. We want you to tell us, is it more important for you to understand why cryptocurrencies? How is this going to affect my life in 2022 and in the years to come? What about government? Is the government ready? For a lot of those people, they want to make sure that it's quote unquote legal, that it's safe place where they're not going to have their personal data destroyed. We can talk about that ad nauseum, of course, but getting feedback from what you, the audience, want to know. We can go down deep rabbit holes in lots of different directions. And I think, Brad, that's one of the big things is to really understand what our folks are. Just keep asking the question out on the street. Keep asking the question what these folks are looking for, and we'll be able to help guide them and bring them from 8 years ago to today and help them get on that boat with us down the road.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think this is exciting, given that this is our first episode of whatever this is going to become, because everything that we just touched on is incredibly surface level. And there's, as you were saying, there's so many different avenues. It's understanding what these projects do, how you can make money from them, how you can use them. There's just an endless amount to talk about. And there's also so much to learn. Even, I've been in this a long time, and every day I'm learning new stuff that just blows my mind. And I feel like over this upcoming episodes, and as we do this more, we're really going to help educate and inform of why cryptocurrency is the future. And so, with that said, I wanted to give two shout outs. One is I'll do a shameless plug on my end, is sitecast.com is the company that I run. And, it's the technology behind what I'm going to talk about next, which is Genesis Financial. And I feel like anybody that's listening to this right now will benefit from heading over to genesisfinancial.org, where we are creating a community of trusted information around crypto. And we want to provide the best information and do it from a non-scammy way, because there's the one thing that underlines so much of this crypto right now is there's scams, there's malicious people out there, and you really don't know where to trust. If you click on the wrong link or send your money somewhere, it's very, very risky from that regard, because there's no FDIC, there's no like payment protection like credit cards have. All of that stuff doesn't exist yet, or it may never exist. And so you really got to trust your sources. And what John and I and a few other folks are setting out to do is we want to be your trusted advisor in the world of understanding this technology. And along the way, if you are an investor, you can also make a little bit of money. None of what we're saying is financial advice. We're just talking about technology and that kind of stuff. But with that said, I look forward to talking to you again, John. And it's going to be an exciting adventure ahead for us.
And my last parting thought, thank you very much for that. The key thing here that we're going to be talking about, Brad and I, is literally the education process. Just to reiterate that once more time, what you said is we are still, I don't even know if there's one guy on base yet, but we're still at the very top of the first inning on this whole conversation. And there's so much to unpack. There's so much dialogue to be had. If we go back to the early 90s, that's when Silicon Valley was started up in San Jose, California. Well, guess what? I'm only 45 minutes away from where the epicenter of cryptocurrency world is, which is in Miami, Florida. So this is clearly going to be an area that we're going to be spending a lot of time attending conferences and learning from the experts in the world and disseminate that information. But we need to, what our mission is at Genesis Financial is to take these hard concepts and break it down so you, the audience, can understand what the heck is going on in simplistic terms. Because if you can't get past the basics, like when you said you like to look at these projects, my head goes, aren't they called companies anymore? No, they're not. They're called projects. So there's so much technology we're going to unpack. Brad, I don't want to talk any further. We've got a lot of work to do, but this was great first video to have with you. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, I loved it. So on that note, goodbye everyone, and we'll talk to you again soon.
See you next time.